Hey, well, this is Zaccheus with another live word of the day. God bless for tuning in. God bless for tuning in. Yes, and today's topic is about the middle class is shrinking more and more. There was a time, once upon a time, when hardworking people used to be able to afford homes in the major cities. I'm talking about back in the 80s, 90s, talking about, yeah, 70s too as well. It was a struggle back then too, because I remember hearing about in the 70s about the struggling. It was in recession, and people are struggling to get jobs to feed their families. And it seems like it's going back to that. It is going back to that. We're here already. We're here already. In America, in New York City, Mayor Eric Adams is talking about, with the migrant crisis, talking about paying people that live in New York City in the tri-state area, paying people 340,000 to home migrants, because as it stands right now, more and more migrants are coming by the bus loads, and the mayor Eric Adams is out of resources and also don't know what to do. Back is against the wall, and ladies and gentlemen, we're at the point right now where the average American cannot afford a home in the major cities. The average American, in order to afford a home, got to be wealthy to in the major cities. Talking about New York City, talking about Florida, talking about Hawaii, talking about LA, major cities, even some parts of Georgia, major cities. The average American got to be wealthy to afford. 80% of Americans are just living check to check. 20% is well off and doing pretty well for themselves. And that's what I call the 1%, because very little. But 80% live check to check. 80% is struggling to they're struggling to afford the basic things. Food, like food, groceries, food, gas, living. $2,000 is the lowest rent, mortgage, and for a home, maybe no, my mistake. Yeah, for rent, $2,000 is the lowest for a family. $2,000 per month is the lowest in rent, and then it goes up from there. The average American can't afford to pay their rent. Living check squeezing. Some people gotta work 2, 3 jobs. After you work 8 hours, you gotta work another 8 hours at run to a second job. I spoke to somebody on my job saying that, listen, my 8 hours, I felt like my day is not over yet because I gotta work another 8 hours on my second job. It is sad. Sad. They gotta work another 8 hours. That's 16 hours a day without seeing your family, without spending time with your family, without breaking bread with your family. You're away from your family because you're struggling to pay the rent and you're struggling to put food on the table. And it's sad. It's sad. The middle class is shrinking. You can't even, they're trying to, I guess, put a band-aid on it by talking about Cyber Monday. They're giving people discounts, but on products. But I'm just talking about basic living. Basic living where you got the put food on the table, and pay rent is a struggle. It's a struggle. And the jobs that you have, that you possess, is not paying you enough. That's why you're working 2, 3 jobs, and you're looking for a side hustle. And you're looking for all these hustles that come up online. They have a lot of hustles online now. And some people are physically working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. And it's hard for a lot of people. It's hard. Because when you have to squeeze just to buy groceries, and it comes to a point where most New Yorkers is going for the SNAP program. Why? Because the groceries is 5% higher than it was before. On just groceries, just to eat. And some of the solutions, a lot of people are exodus, the major cities. And they go to places like North Carolina. Shoot, they even live in America. Because the cost of living is too much. Recently, I got heard of an aid, home health aid that's not from here, not from America, from West Africa, saying that she's going right back home because it's too hard to survive here. It's more peaceful where she's from because at least with one job, with one income, you can survive. Here you need 2, 3 incomes, multiple streams of income just to survive. The wealthy person is the only one that can afford to buy a home in the major cities. You heard right. Some people are returning back to the land where they're born. At one time when I went to Guyana, I thought about it. Because the thing is that the cost is a struggle. When you gotta pay for a room, $2,000 for a room, $1,500 for a room, you have nothing left in your pocket. And if it's just you and your wife, you're still struggling, but you're blending your money together. Of course, that's how it should be. You're blending money together. And it's still a struggle because, let's say for instance, now for example, I heard of a brethren telling me earlier that he's paying $1,500 in babysitting fees. $1,500 a month just to get daycare. Not babysitting, daycare. $1,500 a month plus his rent is $2,000 per month. But yet the job is not paying enough to use to sustain. The job is not paying enough for you to sustain. A lot of people, a lot of middle class, the middle class is shrinking. It seems like the rich is getting richer and the poor is getting poorer. And the middle class is being squeezed by the little resources they have from their job. The goal is for the 1%'s goal for you is to work until you drop. And you're stuck because you feel that you gotta work just to eat. To work just to live non-stop. And you feel that, okay, by the pension, at least you have the pension to depend on. Because the pension is not enough. In certain jobs that you have, even teachers, sometimes some of them stay 30 years in their job, and depending on what city that they live in, because the teacher salary in New York is pretty decent. But in some cities, you gotta have a second hustle. And what I mean by a second hustle You got to look for other hustles. Some people, they have to work at least eight, like I said before, 16 hours just to pay that bill, just to put food on the table, just to keep shelter over their heads. And it should not be that way. But what has taken over America's greed? That mighty dollar, greed. Recently, a family member of mine just got a bill. I think it's Medicaid, Empire Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I think Medicaid and Medicare. All of a sudden now, they're charging $1,700. All of a sudden now they're charging American citizens just to keep that coverage. It's greed that's gonna make the great Babylon fall. It's greed. And I'm gonna say it loud. It's greed that's gonna make the Babylon system fall. We live in a capitalist society that if you're rich, and you're poor, you just stay poor. But God's people, it's not going to take the mark of the beast. It's God's people. It's going to move out of major cities, and God is going to provide for us. God is going to provide for us. God is going to make way. Teach us how to farm. Teach us how to survive anyway. Once you learn how to grow your own crops, once you learn how to grow your garden and grow your own crops, you can live anywhere. There may be a civilization for God's people to live on, where there's no more rent. You just live in a RV, or you live in a thing that you purchase, and there's no rent. It's rent free, and you learn to grow your own crops. Because you never know what's coming. With all the cut setbacks and the freeze and the setbacks and the cuts and the budget cuts and right now in New York City is crazy. A freeze on hiring more school safety for the schools. A freeze on the police department on hiring more police. I think about 2,000 police officers, I think, left or they're not hiring right now. It's becoming to a point where it's unlivable. And watch when crime goes up. It's gonna come a point that you're gonna have to make a move and go to maybe travel to a city that's more reasonable. There's cities that's more reasonable that you can live in America, and there's people that's leaving America and going to other countries, or to Panama. There's another place that people are traveling to, and they realize that I can actually live here. People are going back home to where they was born, or just Americans are just traveling. They got some Black Americans that's relocating to Ghana. They make a couple of visits, 1 or 2 visits, and they're journeying. Why? Because the cost of living and the wages that you pay you in your job, it doesn't match. The cost of living, it does not match. And you have to ask yourself, can you see yourself getting older and older, working 2 or 3 jobs just to eat and just to keep shelter over your head? We're all getting older. And that's a question we have to ask ourselves. What are we going to do? We could just pray and ask God to guide us, to send us to a land where we can just be self-sufficient, where we don't have to rely on being in the major cities. It's overwhelmingly too expensive. The rent is too high. Groceries are too high. Basic simple living Americans cannot afford. They live in check to check, trying to survive. I feel like that song. I don't know if whoever watched it, whoever watched the series, Good Times. Keeping your head above water. Temporary laid off. Good times. Easy credit rip off. That's how I feel. Just like the theme song in Good Times. Just to survive, scratching and surviving. But it's only through the grace of God that's helping some of us, a lot of us, when we pray and ask God for guidance, survive. But you see people that's greedy, and America's gonna suffer for that. The greed is enormous. The greed that people charge people for rent, the greed that people charge people for all these, just a basic life, raising prices because of the inflation and greed. Now the live word is coming out of Proverbs 10 verses 3. The Lord does not let the righteous go hungry, but the thwart the craving of the wicked. Meaning that if you're a person that's trusting God every step of the way, and He's showing you the way how to survive, and you're not only just reading the word, but you're being a steward of the word. You're not just you're a person that's taking action and actually taking action to get yourself, and you're investing in yourself, and you're investing in yourself for you and your family, and you're investing in your future. That's what God is gonna. You'll never go hungry. But if you're lazy and you're less like raising, and you're a landlord, or you're somebody that just taking money out of people, and you're just lazy and don't want to work, but yet you're squeezing everybody else out of money like a tax collector. The Lord thwarf the craving of the wicked. Well, this is Zaccheus with a lot of live word of the day. God bless and be safe out there. Peace and blessings. And thanks for tuning in.